Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we're going to cover the Naval module for Barbarossa Army Group North. Now, naval combat isn't probably the first thing most people think about when they think about the Eastern Front in World War II, but there was some fighting there, and this module adds an entire maritime layer to GMT's Eastern Front or East Front system, simulating naval operations in the Baltic and along some inland waterways. If you've mastered the land campaign, the naval module adds new challenges: ports, transports, amphibious assaults, mines, and air-sea combat, and these can help shape the course of the campaign. So we're going to start off with naval units. This is Rule 25, and naval units are not combat units in the land sense, and they have special capabilities. First, they have artillery support strength, protection ratings, movement allowances, and for transports, capacity. They don't use steps like ground units. Instead, they take damage points until sunk. Naval counters flip between ready and sailed states. Readiness checks determine whether they're available for action. Types of naval units include battleships, cruisers, destroyers, gunboats, transports, and coastal defense ships. Naval units cannot hold ground, as you'd expect, and they can't block zones of control, but they can provide artillery support, conduct transport, engage in naval fire, and of course, soak up Axis or Soviet resources that might otherwise go into ground operations. Naval movement. The seas are divided into sea zones. Naval units move zone to zone, not hex by hex. Each move spends naval movement points, usually one per adjacent sea zone or port. Units can remain at sea, but not in shallow water or coastal hexes at the end of movement. Ports are critical. They anchor supply lines, serve as transport hubs, and provide capacity for loading and unloading. Port capacity is expressed in stacking points. It governs how much can be loaded or unloaded in a turn. Port capacity can be reduced by interdiction, enemy artillery, or nearby combat units. Naval bases increase port capacity and act as key objectives. A naval unit's status matters. Ready units can move and fight normally. Sailed units must pass readiness checks before returning to action. Until it is on a friendly port, a naval unit cannot load ground units for transport, cannot conduct damage repair, and cannot receive ground unit anti-air support. While in port, it's subject to a shipping attack air mission during the enemy's combat phase. Now let's move to Section 27, Naval Movement Loss. Anytime a naval unit moves into or out of a zone or lingers at sea, it checks the naval movement loss table. Losses can come from enemy coastal artillery, air interdiction, or mines. Results can cause damage, abort the move, or in some cases even sink a ship outright. Weather and interdiction levels add modifiers, making naval movement increasingly hazardous. Naval combat happens when opposing units share a sea zone and a search is initiated. Each side rolls fire using the shipping attack table. Units exchange damage simultaneously. No CRT with steps, just damage points until sunk. Damaged units can attempt repairs in port during the naval readiness phase. This creates a tense cat and mouse risk movement to keep ports open, but expose ships to enemy fire and interdiction. Okay, Section 28, Naval Transport. Naval transport is the lifeline of the Baltic. Transport units can carry ground units, infantry, headquarters, MSUs, supplies, etc. Loading and unloading must take place in ports, and they are subject to the port's capacity limits. Units can also conduct evacuation, pulling forces out of threatened coastal pockets before encirclement. Loading ties up units for the phase, and unloading can only occur up to the port's capacity. Any excess will sit on the board until the next turn. If a transport's sunk with troops aboard, those troops are eliminated. Evacuations impose penalties on port capacity and naval losses, but they can be a game saver. Section 29 covers naval artillery support. Naval units with artillery ratings can support declared land attacks. This works like field artillery, but projected from sea zones into adjacent land hexes. Naval artillery can support both offense and defense, counting as an additional artillery unit in the attack. Stormy weather cancels naval artillery, and units in port can't provide fire. This all allows the players to bring a little bit of extra weight to coastal battles, which is particularly important for the Axis assaults on Soviet strongpoints or Soviet defense of ports. Now, the opposite of an evacuation, of course, could be considered to be an amphibious assault. So that is what we cover in Section 30 of the rules. Now, this is the most dramatic use of our naval units. Combat units can be loaded onto transports, moved to an all-sea area adjacent to a coastal hex, and launched into an assault. Only certain unit types can conduct amphibious assaults: infantry, mountain, airborne, engineers, MSUs, and headquarters. Combat follows normal rules, but with special retreat restrictions. Attacking units must move ashore if they take the hex. If they don't succeed, they stay loaded on transports and can try again. Coast artillery defending against an amphibious assault doubles its fire strength, making these operations dangerous and costly. Amphibious assaults are definitely high risk, high reward. On to Section 31, air missions against naval units. The air system integrates tightly with the naval rules. Two new missions are introduced. The first is naval movement interdiction. Axis air units can be assigned to the naval interdiction box. Their presence increases the danger of naval movement and adds DRMs to the movement loss table. The second is shipping attack missions. Air units can directly target naval units at sea or in port. Escorts and defending AA fire apply. Surviving bombers assign damage to ships, potentially sinking them in one strike. Naval units and ground-based anti-air can fire back. Transport ships themselves cannot fire, but a friendly combat ship can provide anti-air cover. This makes air power the most lethal threat to shipping, which is, of course, historically realistic. Section 32 is the final section, and it talks about special units. So this final section introduces the unique pieces from the naval module. You have flotillas, which are still ground units, and that may cause some confusion because typically a flotilla is a small fleet, but we are talking about ground units that have naval movement. They can conduct amphibious assaults, attack across shallow water, and fight other flotillas. They take damage like ground units, not ships. Then we have naval bases. These are counters placed in friendly port hexes. They increase the port capacity and can be evacuated like units. Then the third one is sea mines, and these are markers that modify the naval movement loss table, making certain sea zones more hazardous. Once placed, mines will generally stay in place for the scenario. These units add texture, giving both sides more tools for area denial, supply enhancement, or sudden strikes. In closing, I would just like to say that the naval module does not turn Barbarossa Army Group North into a naval war game, but it does add just enough chrome to capture the real strategic dynamics of the Baltic theater. Ports are vital objectives. Naval transport can rescue or doom armies. Air power dominates the sea just as it does on land. And amphibious operations give both players a dangerous but potentially decisive option. If you've mastered the land game, incorporating the naval module unlocks the full campaign experience, tying together land, air, and sea in the struggle for Army Group North. That is going to do it for this one. Before I go, a quick shout out to my channel members, Guardian and Tom Marshall. And also a quick mention, if you would like to help support the channel, you can become a channel member. It can be for as little as 99 cents a month. The higher tier, the second tier, is $2.99 a month. And click on the join button. There's a short video you can watch to find out just what's involved and what you get for your support. I'd also like to thank everyone for watching, of course. If you would consider liking, sharing, and or perhaps subscribing to the channel if you're not a subscriber, that would be outstandingly gracious of you, and I would much appreciate it. If you're already a subscriber, thank you very much. Your continued support is very much appreciated. That is going to do it for now. If you have comments, questions, or anything else to say, you can post it in the comments section. I will do my best to get back to you. But that is all. Until next time, I'm Joe. This is Hexed Encountered, and as always, happy gaming.